There is a quote that has been attributed to various thinkers throughout history. Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, sometimes unnamed philosophers. Most people die at 25 and are not buried until 75. Whoever said it first, the observation cuts deep. By the end of this video, we will go through what actually dies in the mid-20s for so many people, why comfort is more dangerous than hardship, how identity crystallizes into a cage, and much more. The quote is not pointing at physical death. It is pointing at something harder to see and harder to escape. Somewhere around the mid-20s, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, something shifts. The wide-open possibility that existed in youth starts to narrow. Options that once seemed endless begin to close. And at some point, without any conscious decision, exploration stops. The job that was supposed to be temporary becomes permanent. The city that was just for now becomes forever. The personality that developed in adolescence freezes in place. I am not a creative person. I am not good with money. I am not the type who takes risks. I am just this. And this becomes a life sentence. Psychologists call it identity crystallization. The sense of self that remains fluid through childhood and adolescence starts to solidify in the 20s. It is a natural developmental process. But there is a difference between a mature, stable identity and a prison built from premature conclusions. What happens for many people is that the crystallization occurs not from deep self-knowledge, but from exhaustion, from disappointment, from giving up on possibilities that once seemed real, the dream that did not work out, the relationship that broke something, the attempt that failed publicly enough to make trying again feel dangerous. Somewhere in the wreckage, a decision gets made, usually not consciously. I will not hope that hard again. I will not risk that much again. I will not feel that disappointed again. The volume on life gets turned down. Expectations shrink. The goal shifts from building something meaningful to simply getting through. That is the death the quote describes. Not the heart stopping, the soul going quiet. Seneca saw this 2,000 years ago. He wrote that it is not that life is short, but that most of it gets wasted. People busy themselves with things that do not matter, pursue goals they never chose, and arrive at old age wondering where the time went. They lose the day in expectation of the night and the night in fear of the dawn. The external metrics might look fine: job, relationship, routine. A life that checks boxes on some imaginary list, but inside there is emptiness. A nagging sense that somewhere along the way something essential got lost. This is not about dramatic dissatisfaction. It is not about hating life. It is about that quiet numbness, that low-grade absence of excitement, that feeling of watching days pass like cards being shuffled, each one basically the same as the last. The world is full of people like this, going through motions, waiting for weekends, counting down to vacations, living for those brief moments when the routine breaks and enduring everything in between. They are not unhappy enough to change, not satisfied enough to feel alive, just existing. There are forces that create this state, and they are worth understanding. First, expectations. By the mid-20s, society has a timeline. Career should be on track. Relationship status should be progressing. Certain adulthood markers should be checked. When someone is not where they should be, panic sets in. And panic makes people grab whatever is available. Not what is right, but what stops the anxiety. The job that is stable but deadening. The relationship that is comfortable but uninspiring. The life that looks acceptable to others but feels hollow inside. Decisions made from panic do not feed the soul. They just quiet the fear, temporarily. Second, the comfort trap. There is a point where life becomes manageable, not great, but not bad enough to demand change. The morning routine, the familiar commute, the predictable evenings, enough small pleasures to get through. Comfort feels like safety, but it is actually quicksand. Suffering forces movement. It demands adaptation, change, response. That is why people often grow most after hardship. But comfort allows stillness. indefinite stillness. Decades of stillness, until one day looking up and realizing that years have passed and nothing has actually happened. Third, the story that becomes a cage. I am not the kind of person who does that. Once that phrase takes root, it starts running the show. Every opportunity gets filtered through it. Everything that contradicts it gets dismissed. Evidence that supports the story is collected. Evidence that contradicts it is ignored. And slowly the story becomes self-fulfilling. Not because it was ever true, but because it has been repeated so many times that it might as well be. The brain remains plastic throughout life. New neural pathways can form at any age. Change is always biologically possible, yet people act as if change becomes impossible after a certain point. As if the self is set in stone by 30, certainly by 40. This is not neuroscience. It is resignation dressed up as wisdom. You are who you are. That phrase has buried more potential than any external obstacle ever has. The alternative starts with recognizing the death for what it is. Not dramatic, not obvious. Just a gradual dimming that happens so slowly it is easy to miss. The dreams that stop being discussed. The possibilities that stop being considered. The plans that turned into someday and then into never. Recognition is the first step, because what is not seen cannot be changed. Then questioning the story. The identity that crystallized, was it chosen or did it just happen? Was it based on deep self-knowledge or on a few disappointing experiences that got overgeneralized? Most people never ask these questions. They assume the story is accurate simply because it has been there so long. But stories can be rewritten, at any age, at any stage, not easily, not overnight, but possibly. Then tolerating the discomfort of becoming again. There is a reason people stop growing. Growth is uncomfortable. It requires leaving the known for the unknown. It risks failure, embarrassment, disappointment. Staying the same is safer, predictable, controlled. But staying the same forever has its own cost, a cost that compounds quietly until it becomes a life unlived. The burial at 75 does not have to be the end of the story. It can be the wake-up call, the moment of realizing that the heart is still beating, the neurons are still firing, the capacity for change still exists. Something can wake up, decide that the remaining decades will be different, that the dimness that settled in can be pushed back. It will not be easy, but it is possible, and possible is enough to start.